Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I live in this small town with its charms and problems. Until recently, our town was entirely white, which meant locals had outdated views they expressed openly. Over the last decade, we've seen a growing East Asian community moving in, mostly Chinese and Thai families. This has upset what I call the "I was born here, you know" brigade. My daily routine is simple. Every day I take my dog, SP, for a walk. We stop by this small kiosk near the park run by this kind Thai couple. They love SP and always save treats for him. After getting our snacks, I sit for a while drinking and watching dogs in the park while SP gets treats and attention. Then we go through the woods where SP swims while I dip my feet in the river. Then we cross this bridge and head home. Today started like any other. SP ran ahead to see his favorite people while I sat down, put my headphones on, and watched puppies that were out for a walk. That's when I noticed this couple sitting on a bench nearby with their little girl. The mother was glaring at my Thai friends. At first I thought maybe that was just her face. My friend came over to chat, so I paused my music and we talked about the puppies. I noticed the couple was now glaring at me too. It felt uncomfortable, so SP and I continued our walk. After SP failed at racing a squirrel and we cooled off in the river, we headed toward the bridge that would take us home. I still had my headphones on but hadn't turned the music back on. I tend to forget I'm wearing them. As we walked, I heard footsteps behind us. It was that same couple and their kid. I heard the little girl asking if she could pet my dog. I was about to agree, but before I could, the mother said I couldn't hear her because of my stupid headphones. I rolled my eyes but decided these people weren't worth talking to, so I kept walking and pretended I couldn't hear them. Lucky my music was paused because what I heard next showed what disgusting people they were. The father asked his wife if I was the same person they had seen earlier at the park. The mother called me a hipster and used a bad word. She then went on a racist rant, blaming people like me for supporting foreign businesses rather than local ones, and claimed if we didn't support these foreigners, they would all go back to their countries. She used racial slurs throughout. Her husband just muttered in agreement. The mother kept saying these hateful things the whole way. I felt bad for their little girl, for my friends, for anyone who had to deal with these people. I wanted to say something but didn't want to start a fight in front of their child. We reached the bridge. It's narrow, so you cross in single file. There we were, me first, followed by SP, then the mother, the father, and their daughter last. That's when it happened. SP suddenly stopped right in front of the mother. He squatted down and took the biggest, nastiest, smelliest poop ever. This thing was massive. It could have had the United Nations putting sanctions on my dog's butt. It could have applied for a driver's license and taken out a mortgage. It was that big. When the smell hit her, the mother leaned over the side of the bridge and made a loud vomiting sound. Her husband told her to stop throwing up. Their daughter couldn't stop laughing. I quickly grabbed a poop bag and cleaned it up. Once it was sealed, I walked away with SP wagging his tail behind me as we left them on the bridge. SP got a strawberry chew when we got home, and I got this story to share. I had a thriving catering business I built from scratch, a loving husband who supported my dreams, and a daughter who made every exhausting day worth it. My company wasn't huge, but we had a solid reputation in town for quality food and professional service. I'd worked for 5 years to get there, midnight meal prep, weekend events, and juggling family time with business demands. Then I met her, the woman who would later be known in my nightmares simply as Karen. I was at this monthly business mixer downtown, setting up my sample appetizer station like I always did. These networking events were great for landing corporate clients, and I needed to expand beyond birthday parties and small weddings. I was arranging my mini quiches when I felt someone's eyes on me. She stood there in expensive clothes and jewelry that probably cost more than my monthly rent. I smiled and extended my hand, introducing myself as the owner of Fresh Start Catering and offering her one of our signature appetizers. She looked me up and down and told me she only networked with successful people. Then she walked away, left me standing there with my hand out like an idiot. My cheeks burned as I noticed a few people had witnessed the exchange. Despite this humiliating introduction, my business brain kicked in. A woman that wealthy could be a valuable client. Maybe she was just having a bad day? I swallowed my pride and got her contact info from the event organizer. A week later, I was sitting in her mansion with marble floors and artwork that looked museum quality. Her home office was bigger than my entire kitchen. She told me she was hosting a charity gala next month with 300 guests, very important people, and she needed everything perfect. I tried to explain that I understood and brought some sample menus based on the season, but she interrupted me. She wanted fresh strawberries and figs for the appetizer display. When I pointed out it was January and those items would be out of season, suggesting we could substitute with something else, she said that she didn't care about the cost. She told me to just make it happen because money was no object. I should have walked away right then. But the potential paycheck was too tempting. My daughter needed braces and our car was on its last legs. I agreed to see what I could source, explaining it might take some special ordering. She sighed and said this was why she usually hired caterers from the city. But her usual person was booked, so here we were. For the next 3 weeks, my phone buzzed constantly with her demands. Text messages at 3 a.m. about changing the napkin colors. Calls during family dinner about how the crab cakes should be precisely 1 inch in diameter, no more, no less. When I tried to explain that I understood she wanted everything perfect, but some of these changes would require additional fees, she cut me off and asked if she had asked about the cost, then told me to just do it. My husband started calling her the client from hell. My staff threatened to quit, but I kept going, thinking about that final payment. The day of the event arrived. My team and I showed up 5 hours early to set everything up. We were arranging the last of the centerpieces when Karen walked in. She shouted, asking what this was. I tried to greet her, explaining we were just putting on the finishing touches, but she wouldn't listen. She yelled that the roses were blush when she had wanted pale pink, then asked if I was colorblind or just incompetent. I tried to explain that these were the exact flowers approved in our last meeting, and that I had the signed form, but she didn't care what she had signed and said it was wrong. Then she wanted to know where the ice sculptures were. When I explained that ice sculptures weren't in our contract and that we had discussed them but she had decided against them, she became more angry. She accused me of contradicting her and said she would never forget something so important, claiming I was trying to ruin her event. By this point, guests were starting to arrive. Wealthy people in formal wear were witnessing this meltdown. I tried to keep my voice professional. I apologized for any miscommunication and offered that my team could rearrange the flowers while I greeted her guests. She told me not to touch anything else, saying I'd done enough damage. She was screaming so loudly that everyone turned to stare. Her face was red. I'd had enough. I said that I had fulfilled every item in our contract, answered her messages at all hours, sourced impossible ingredients, but I would not stand there and be treated this way in front of her guests. She called me ungrateful, and then she lunged at me. Her hands shoved against my chest so hard, I stumbled backward into the dessert table. Chocolate mousse cups went flying as I hit the floor. Before I could get up, she was on me, slapping at my face and pulling my hair. I tried to block her hits, but she was surprisingly strong for someone so thin. All I could think was that my daughter would see these bruises. One guest called for someone to stop her. Another guest asked Karen if she had lost her mind. 2 men in suits pulled her off me while I scrambled to my feet. My white chef's coat was covered in chocolate and my lip was bleeding. Karen was still yelling, claiming I had ruined everything and wanting someone to arrest me. The security guard told her that they all saw what happened and the only person getting arrested would be her. The police came. They took statements from about a dozen witnesses who all confirmed she attacked me unprovoked. Karen looked shocked when they put handcuffs on her wrists. I pressed charges. My business insurance covered the damaged food and equipment. Karen got community service. 6 months of serving food at the homeless shelter downtown. The same shelter My company donated leftover food to every week. The judge also ordered her to pay for my medical bills and damages to my business reputation. The publicity from the incident actually brought me more clients. People who witnessed it spread the word about how my staff handled everything, even with their boss being attacked. I still cater high-end events. I'm more careful about which clients I take on now. When I'm serving food at the shelter as a volunteer, I see Karen in her community service vest, serving mashed potatoes with a scowl. My husband says I should feel bad for her, but I don't. That catering event wasn't just the worst day of my professional life, it was also a turning point. I realized I'd spent too long letting people with money push me around. Now when potential clients get demanding, I tell them we might not be the right fit for their event. I've never been happier. I was 14 when my life changed during the summer of 1988. Until then, I've been a good kid, smart, and responsible. But during a one-week trip to another state, I made a stupid mistake. While trying to impress some kids I'd met, I got involved in theft and property damage. Nothing major, about $100 worth, but enough to get the police involved. This was out of character for me, and I was sorry for what I'd done. When my parents found out, they weren't just angry but disappointed, which felt worse. Their punishment was fair. I had to pay back double the damage, meaning I needed a job. My mom told me to go to our local convenience store and ask for work. The store owner needed a stock clerk and hired me at minimum wage, $3.35 an hour. The schedule worked well, Saturdays and Sundays from 11 to 6, plus Tuesday nights. The store had a sub shop on one end and the convenience store on the other, with storage, walk-in coolers, and the main desk in the middle. Three there, Amy, Betty, and Charlie. Amy was in her 50s and worked most shifts. Betty and Charlie, both in their 30s, were always nice to everyone, but Amy was different. I kept working through summer, fall, and winter. My hours increased to include Wednesday nights. During my first 6 months, the owner fired 3 other stock clerks for theft. I never thought about stealing. The owner let me have sodas and candy whenever I wanted. Just 2 rules: don't touch the beer and don't steal. I love the round beef jerky from the glass jar and Orangina soda. The job was simple: keep coolers stocked, sweep and mop floors, help customers. Tuesdays were delivery days, so I'd price everything, rotate stock, and organize inventory. Though stocking cigarettes was the cashier's job, I helped by bringing the cartons they needed. I did what was asked without complaint. I was always on time. My mom had a rule about my paychecks: half to spend, half to save. My bank account kept growing. My mom worked in town where she knew everyone. If I stepped out of line, she'd hear about it before I got home. This kept me honest. One day, Mom came home from work looking serious. She told me what her friend saw at the store. Her friend was shopping when Amy, who didn't know she was connected to us, was smoking with her friend. Amy said she would show her friend something funny. She yelled for me to come to the front. I ran up right away. Amy told me to sweep the parking lot even though it was drizzling. I put on my coat, grabbed the broom, and did it while Amy and her friend laughed. Mom's friend went straight to tell my mom. Mom also heard from someone else that Amy had said other mean things about me. Amy was nasty, a yeller who slammed things and talked rudely about others. She wore heels that made a loud clomp clomp sound throughout the store. I was stunned when Mom told me. I was a good kid. No one knew about my trouble with the police, which was cleared up. I played sports, got good grades, and had friends. Why would an adult treat me this way? Mom asked what I wanted to do. I told her I couldn't work there anymore. Mom told me to get on my bike and tell the owner I was quitting and explain why. So I did. The owner looked shocked when I explained. I also mentioned my grades were suffering because I worked late. I'd ride my bike home but would be too wired to sleep. My parents would be in bed, so I'd stay up until 1 a.m. watching TV. Then I'd wake at 5:45 a.m. to shower before my brothers and catch the 7:15 a.m. bus. The owner surprised me. He offered a raise to $4.25 an hour, said I could do homework at the desk, reduced my tasks to just stocking and cleaning, helping customers, and told me I didn't have to do what Amy told me anymore. I accepted. When I told my parents, they were happy. Mom made my favorite dinner. Dad shook my hand. $4.25 an hour was a big deal then. A week later, I worked with Amy again. It was quiet, and I had finished homework and most tasks except floor cleaning. I heard her yelling from the front. I didn't move or respond. Then I heard her heels coming my way. My back was to the door as I sat at the desk. She stood in the doorway and yelled, asking why I hadn't responded when she'd been calling and what I was doing. My knees shook. I slowly turned around, made eye contact, and told her that the owner said I didn't need to do what she told me anymore. I turned back around and pretended to read. The silence felt heavy. She walked back to the front counter faster this time. The desk phone dinged and I knew she was calling the owner. I heard yelling from the front, then a loud bang as she hung up. I waited for her to come back, but she never did. I finished my shift and left when she did. I rode my bike home quickly. Amy barely spoke to me for weeks after. She stopped ordering me around. Betty and Charlie became friendlier with me. They treated me like a colleague. Betty got me to tell her what happened and I learned the rest. The owner had scolded Amy. Her family stopped hanging around the store so much. Though Amy and I never made up, things got better and she wasn't rude to me again. The best part was doing homework at the store. I had hours with little to do, so I got ahead on assignments, studied, and read more. My grades improved quickly. I worked there until the end of the next summer before focusing on school, sports, and friends. It had been one of those days where everything went wrong. I've been working overtime at the grocery store where I've been employed for the past 3 years. Not by choice, but because my co-worker called in sick at the last minute. Again. 3rd time this month. I'm not complaining about the extra money. I need it with rent going up next month. But standing on your feet for 10 hours straight, dealing with cranky customers who can't understand why we're out of their favorite cereal isn't how I wanted to spend my Thursday. By the time my shift ended, it was already dark outside. I hurried to the bus stop, checking my watch every few seconds. The last bus that goes to my neighborhood leaves at 9:30 p.m., and it was already 9:25. If I missed it, I'd have to take 2 different buses and walk an extra mile to get home. When I reached the stop, I saw the familiar headlights of the number 42 bus approaching. Relief washed over me as I fumbled for my bus pass. The driver, an older man with salt and pepper hair, recognized me and gave a small nod as I climbed aboard. I thanked him for waiting, mentioning that I thought I might miss the bus. He replied that it wasn't a problem and that I had just made it in time. The bus wasn't crowded. A couple of teenagers with headphones, an elderly woman knitting a scarf, and a man in a business suit who had clearly had a long day just like me. I sat down in my usual seat near the middle, letting out a sigh. Just as the driver was about to close the doors and pull away from the curb, I heard a voice from outside. Someone was yelling for the bus to wait. I looked out the window and saw her, a woman in her 40s, power walking toward the bus. She had a phone pressed to her ear with one hand while waving at the bus with the other. You know the type, acting like they're in a hurry but moving at the pace of a casual stroll. The driver waited. He even reopened the doors that had already started to close. Everyone on the bus watched as this woman approached. She was talking loudly into her phone. I could hear her complaining to someone about an inadequate presentation, saying they needed to redo the entire thing by Monday. She went on about how difficult it was to put together a decent PowerPoint. The woman reached the bus and then she stopped walking. She lowered her phone from her ear, stopped talking, and started typing something. She wasn't even looking at the bus anymore, just standing there, texting like we weren't all waiting for her. The driver looked in his rearview mirror at the rest of us. The businessman checked his watch. The elderly woman shook her head. 5 seconds passed, then 10. The woman was still typing, completely oblivious to the fact that she was holding up an entire busload of people who just wanted to get home. Then the driver closed the doors. The woman's head snapped up at the sound, her mouth dropping open. As the bus pulled away from the curb, I saw her face change from surprise to outrage. She started waving her arms wildly, phone still in hand. The businessman across from me started chuckling. The elderly woman smiled down at her knitting. Even the teenagers pulled off their headphones for a moment to see what was happening. The driver commented that some people think the world revolves around them. I replied that what he did was awesome, and I didn't think he would actually leave her behind. He told me that after driving this route for 15 years, he had learned to spot the people who would keep him waiting all night if he let them. As we continued down the road, I smiled. After a day of dealing with entitled customers who treated me like their personal servant, watching someone get what they deserved felt good. The rest of the ride home was peaceful. The rocking of the bus nearly lulled me to sleep. When my stop came, I thanked the driver again for both the ride and the entertainment. He wished me a good night and said he would see me tomorrow. As I walked from the bus stop to my apartment, I thought about the woman still standing at that bus stop. Would she have to wait for the next bus? Would she have to call a taxi? Would she learn anything from this experience? Probably not. People like that rarely do. But for one brief moment, she wasn't able to make the world bend to her will. I climbed the stairs to my apartment, kicked off my shoes, and collapsed onto my couch. Despite being tired, I was smiling. A bus driver who knows when to close his doors and drive away. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.